Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Gruber Wired. I'm Mark Beach.
I'm John Dodson.
Welcome. Well, you know, those avatars kind of look like us, don't they?
Yeah, I wish. I got to tell you, Mark, you're having fun making those little videos, and you're just understanding how to work with AI. It's great.
It's a lot of fun. I'm telling you, there are such great tools out there, and you know, it's all about learning how to talk to them.
Yeah, that's one of the big things, understanding we're in the communications industry, right? So how do you communicate with AI to get the results you're looking for?
It is, you know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, it takes 1,000 words to create a picture, you know. I mean, this is the reverse engineering of that, and describing to AI exactly what you want to see. And these aren't even complicated shots, you know. AI, if you look at some of the, if you go like on, let's say, Sora, and some of the images that are out there that people have made.
Pretty creative.
You can click into them, and then you can see the text that was used to make it.
Really? Okay.
And sometimes it's pretty intense.
Really? That much goes into that?
Yeah. For some of them. Some of them are, you know, simply created, but others have a complex build script that somebody's generated to get a precise look or effect.
Yeah, what amazes me, what you were able to do to make that little intro video there, you were able to do just using access, from your phone?
Yeah, I did on my computer, but all I did was I told, so we scripted out our podcast, and then I told it, ChatGPT, to write me a 1-minute intro script. And I took that script and I put it into the Opus, Agent Opus, and picked a voice, picked the aspect ratio, gave it the script. It spit it back at me and said, you know, is this what you want to say? And I said yes, and then it generated it from there.
That's something. You know, years and years ago when I was in broadcast journalism for a while, man, to make a simple, what would seem simple to us video like that would have taken mass manpower, money. I mean, the amount of money to put into something like that back in the day. And it would take days, if not weeks, to be able to come up with a small 20-second, 30-second video of that nature.
Yeah, and it's not perfect. So I mean, I do some of these on the weekend for politics and other things, and I have to go back in and do editing in my video editing software, and I'll create 2 or 3 versions of the same thing, and then do cuts and fades into where it gets it right the best for a particular segment, so that it builds it correctly.
Now, you use the word perfect. I mean, but as a human being, we're not perfect. So what are you looking for when you say perfect?
Well, I'm looking for words to be spelled correctly, number one.
Yeah, right.
That's the biggest thing. But then, you know, graphics that align with what the script is saying, and not odd motion. Like, there's some weird gestures or things that can happen.
Yeah, it doesn't look natural.
No. So trying to just make sure that in that particular 5 seconds or 10 seconds, it aligns with the script and it doesn't look weird, you know, doesn't look AI-ish, or a better version of AI, then, you know, that's why I do a couple, 3 versions of it so that I can splice and paste it. So I run my audio track all the way through, and then I just do have different graphic segments of it and build it out from there.
So if somebody's starting out and just wants to play around with this, what would you tell them?
Keep practicing. Yeah. I mean, you learn by doing. I learn by doing. And you can watch all the videos you want, but you will learn how it responds to you by using it. And then you'll get feedback. I mean, I can't tell you, in the beginning especially, I would create, okay, let's just go to Sora for a minute. I mean, it would take me 10, 15, 20 descriptions or adjustments before it would get it right, before I started learning how it kind of wants to be told what to do. And now it takes, you know, 3 or 4 times, and I get it. You know,
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So you know, if you missed this last week, we jumped an hour ahead. We went, we had our podcast a little early to have a special guest who is in town visiting us. So we appreciate Alexander for being here.
Yeah, she's great, wasn't she?
Yep. she's a great partner, great vendor partner, and a customer of Gruber. So, and now, we're actually would be 2 hours difference from the East Coast.
Correct.
From last week because of daylight savings time.
Are we ever going to get rid of daylight savings?
I think so. I think
we should, right?
I think it's jumped the shark, right? Does everybody know what that's from?
I know the term, but what is it directly from?
So there was a Happy Days episode where Fonzie on his motorcycle jumped a shark tank.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the end of Happy Days that jumped the shark. It was like the episode that was just, it stayed on too long. And with Fonzie jumping over the shark, it was jump the shark.
It was just done.
That became popular, a popular term for you stayed too long or it lasted. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Oh, boy. So today we're going to get into talking about future-proofing in regards to how do you not overspend in your technology today for tomorrow.
So with that, go one.
There you go. Most expensive network upgrade is the one you didn't need.
Exactly.
Kind of see this a lot talking to people out there in our industry. Just the overcomplicating things just by overthinking it.
Right. Exactly. Can you come back? Yep. Nope. Just on that screen for like 3 or 4 seconds. Okay.
Here we go again.
Okay, yeah, so we're going to talk about the most expensive upgrade is the one you don't need.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, it's just, when we think about it, we always want to go great, the best, the greatest, right now. Give me the full fireworks display, right?
Right.
When you really don't need it.
Right. I mean, there are appropriate ways to do preventive maintenance and make sure that, your network is doing what it should be doing. But unless you're changing your switches and routers out, your cables really don't need to be changed out because they're not going to go bad.
No.
Right?
No, not in that environment.
Copper's not going to go bad. I mean, it's still going to work. And if it's, when you upgrade equipment, that's really the time to look at your cabling infrastructure and really align with what you're doing at that moment. Mm-hmm. Of course, no one wants to pull cable twice. So,
right.
You want to make sure that you're putting in something that it can grow with you. But what I've noticed, and something we were talking about earlier, was that a lot of times, say you need fiber, right? Just say you need OS2. Well, some companies ask us or go out in the marketplace and want CommScope, let's say.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with CommScope, but now you're going for Lay's potato chips when you could have just gotten the generic bag where the potatoes came out of the same ground.
Right.
Right?
Brand name recognition. We know it's all out there, right? We know it's sold all over the place. It's pushed in your face for many products.
But guess what? The glass that's inside the cable, Corning, usually. And so the guts of what's going on, where the workload happens, it's the same guts.
Well, yeah, and you also got to consider the fact when you're looking at these products, for instance, there are some brands out there that once you initiate using that particular brand, you've got to lock in and stay with that brand throughout your entire build, because if not, you void any warranty that comes along with that.
Right. And let's say you buy, name brand X, so we don't get in any trouble, but you buy one of their patch panels or you buy one of their, fiber systems. Well, you have to continue down that road. You have to use all of their parts for the guts of those things. You can't use, a different brand because they make it just different enough that you can't use anybody else's parts.
Yeah, so look into the brands that you're taking a look at and make sure, are they proprietary,
right?
Or are they compatible with other brands or other products out there on the marketplace?
Right.
Because that'll make your life a lot easier.
Right. And it was one of the reasons, back in my early days when I was messing with, actually building computers and things like that, that if I bought a computer, if I wasn't building it, then I would never buy from a manufacturer who made their inside the box proprietary. Mm-hmm. So if I wanted to put, my own I wanted to go out and buy the best memory possible. I didn't have to buy their brand. I could buy Corsair or somebody else, and throw it in there and it would work. And some manufacturers didn't allow you to do anything. You had to use all of their parts on the inside of the box. Yeah. And so it's the same thing with networks. You can get trapped into a system, and then all you're trapped into is, in my opinion, overspending, because it's not going to change the result of what you're trying to accomplish.
Correct. And the other thing, keep in mind too, when if you're just starting to build your system, not replacing it, not upgrading, but if you're putting an initial system in the first time, start to think long term. How long do you want this system in place before you're going to look at an upgrade? I think a lot of times people rush into it and they're investing a lot of money when they don't need to, because whether it's their business model, their home model, they're not anticipating it correctly.
Right. Exactly. All right, go to
why networks get overbuilt.
Yeah. So, we have this phenomenon in society of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out.
Yep.
And sometimes, people think that they're going to be behind the curve if they don't over-engineer their deployment.
Yeah.
And I mean, if your network is running 1 gig, you don't need anything that runs 10 gig. If it's running 10 gig, you don't need anything that's running 40 gig, right?
Correct.
I mean, it just all depends on where, what your roadmap is. And you can build great bandwidth within your inside network and spend a lot of money to send emails.
Yeah. Again, It goes back to what I was saying. You're designed from the beginning, the purpose. What are you using this system for? And then designing it around those needs, and then not letting people influence you from there. Because there's another thing comes into play. You're going to go out and look for product, right? And what are you going to do? You're going to go talk to salespeople. You're going to talk to people in this industry. And of course, in sales, there's a lot of people out there. We're in this job to make money.
Right.
And so a lot of times I have heard from other customers of ours, hey, they pushed me down this road. This was our initial design, and I went from point A over to point C, and we skipped B.
Right.
Because, hey, the salesman said this is the right way to go. This is where I should go.
Right.
And that's not necessarily the correct decision to make.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, again, people have asked me, what kind of computer should I get, right, at home?
Yeah.
And my question back to them is always, what are you going to use it for? You going to balance your checkbook? Are you going to, send email? Or are you going to be doing gaming? Because the answers are completely different. Those are the two spectrums, right?
Yeah.
You just might need a Chrome tablet or a Chromebook. If all you're going to be doing is sending emails and, visiting a few websites here and there and whatever. I mean, people are tempted to do it at home too, where they overspend for tech when they're not using any of the capabilities that they're actually buying.
Yeah.
If you're doing graphics, if you're doing like Photoshop or any video rendering or anything like that, totally different animal than if you are simply just, doing household stuff.
Yeah, I'm working on a cabling system right now for a customer that we're designing, which is a data control cable assembly for AC units. Okay. And so when they originally came to me with a spec, and I took a look at it, and we're looking at the products, and we realized the wire for this particular spec was rather expensive. And I mean, it was going to cost a lot of money for this.
Right.
Well, after taking a look at it, I got back with the customer. I said, what's your full application purpose? What has taken place here that we need to resolve?
Right.
Well, I did find another cable that I could get that was about almost half the cost.
Right.
That meets all the needs that they have for their system.
Right.
And so that's my next step now is, taking that, and what I'm doing to them and for them is giving them 2 different alternate designs.
Right.
So that way I can get this in their hands. They can test both of them, take a look. So I'm giving the option A, which they requested, and then option B, which is, more cost effectiveness way in order to meet their needs.
Right. Right. I mean, let's face it. There are some snake oil salesmen out there, and you hear people. I've heard a lot of people lately ask for like Cat 6E.
Yeah, that's going around like
Cat
crazy.
6. Okay, let me tell you, people, just for the record, there is no data standard for Cat 6E.
No.
Okay, it doesn't exist. 6A is a standard, 6 is a standard, 5E is a standard. 6E is something somebody, hallucinated to say that their cable performs better. Well, our Quabbin Cat 6 cable is 550 megahertz, same as the Cat 6E stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
We just don't label it enhanced because it's just a superior performance cable to begin with, and that's what we use on our standard Cat 6 patch cables.
Correct.
Right. So, when somebody's asking for something, you have to, read between the lines and understand the spec behind what they're looking for.
Yeah, good point. And there's another point you just brought up was the specs. Okay, never ignore the specs on these products.
Right.
Don't be afraid to go out there and find 4 or 5 different products and pull the specs for each, even if they're for the equivalents. Take a look at them and do your Pepsi challenge, I guess you could say. Compare them, compare notes,
right.
Find the cabling that might not be the most expensive or least expensive, but most
right.
suited for your application.
Right, exactly. And we're talking about just understanding system stability and your current environment needs. Now the Gruber cables are engineered to perform, and they're not overpriced. They're not reclassified as something else in order to charge more. They are, USA made, which is, why they're more expensive than imports, because people get a living wage here in the U.S., right?
Right.
To make these cables. So it's just a matter of, where are you, understanding what your network is and what it's going to grow up to be.
Yeah, the other place in regards to putting network together is understanding the environment that you're in.
Right.
Understanding that if you're working on an indoor environment, you might not need an outdoor ruggedized cable.
Right.
So
right.
Understanding your environment is going to go a long ways, when you're coming into your equipment, whether it's the racking, the cabling itself.
Well, one thing I run into, too, a lot is on the fiber jacketing, indoor, outdoor, right?
Yeah.
And people not understanding the fundamental difference between the applications for those and distribution cables, right? And they'll go, well, let me get an indoor. Well, indoor, might be in shorter supply. They make a ton of indoor outdoor.
Yeah.
When I try and tell them, well, indoor outdoor would work. No, it's just going to be inside. Yeah, but indoor outdoor is less expensive because they make a higher volume of it.
Yeah, it's more available.
Right, because it's versatile.
Yeah.
Right, you can run it from outdoor to indoor, like the name says.
Yeah.
So,
right.
yeah, and so there's an economy of scale there. But understanding what you're getting on your jacketing, and then what's inside the jacket makes a difference.
It does.
All right, go 3. All right, so what bandwidth do you actually need? Again, it comes down to like the situation at home and what kind of computer you need. What does your company do? Do you do VoIP? Are you a TV studio? Do you download videos, photos? Do you do a high traffic count? Do you host your own website? What does your company do? How many workstations are there? What is the makeup of your organization?
Yeah, and also to consider your growth of that organization.
Right.
Because you can do some things now to future-proof your scenario so that 5 years down the road, you're not caught off guard.
Right.
And it's not as much of an investment when you go to upgrade.
Right. And, in a previous life, I had a company in Scottsdale, and we merged with a company in Atlanta, and I handled the IT, even though I was the operations guy. We're going to spend $150 an hour for a contract company to come in and do stuff. I learned it all, right. And not that because it was specific to our environment. Now, if I had to have broad knowledge of a lot of different environments, it'd been one thing, but I knew our environment. But we had to get, we set up a VoIP system, and now we're talking about, in the early 2000s,
okay,
2001, 2002. And so we put in a VoIP system, and we actually then got a dedicated trunk or pipe it was a T3 on the backbone of the internet, they call it, I guess, where it just does a hop off from our facility. Then it was straight pipe to Atlanta, and then a hop off into the office there. And so their phones were on the switch that we had mounted in our server room.
Okay.
And it was just like those people were in the same office. You just dial an extension and pick it up.
Off you go.
Right. Same thing with the computers we used at the time. They were called Capios. We called them Crapios, but they were little terminal emulation boxes for virtual servers, right? Yeah. And we kind of used something similar here, only I think those little boxes have their own, they might have their own internal memory storage as well. But these didn't. These were thin clients, they called them. And so they would, you'd launch a Java applet, and it would launch on the server. And so the server would actually be running the instance of whatever was going on at the workstation. So the thin client had very little bandwidth requirement other than just to relay basically screenshots of what was happening and transmit information on whatever the agent was putting on the screen. So it was very low demand, and all the demand, all the money we put in was at the server level. All of the guts, all of the strength had to be there in order to make it work. And then people in Atlanta tunneled in and accessing the same thing. The latency was very low. So it was all really good.
Very cool. Yeah, no, you bring up a good point, is understanding where you need to put your infrastructure. I think the largest issue with a lot of people is understanding what they need for a backbone, because that's kind of the most critical part of this infrastructure, right?
Right.
And then understanding where they need that backbone to be able to grow in the future.
Right.
I mean, and make sure that you have it ready now.
Exactly. All right, go 4.
When does higher spec actually make sense?
Right.
Yeah, and it can, and then it goes back to what we were talking about, the growth.
Right.
So if you know that you're putting in a system today that's using Cat 6, okay, so start to think, 3 years from now, am I going to need Cat 6A? Am I going to need to push that copper a little more? Or do I need to start thinking more in the direction of fiber because of where that growth is going to go, and kind of have an idea and a relative idea of where you want to go with it?
Well, let's go Cat 8.
Yeah.
The higher the number isn't better necessarily.
Not necessarily. Cat 8, we've talked about this before. It's out there, but that's probably the top of the spectrum for copper as far as copper cabling goes.
But it's a pretty expensive upgrade because all your switches and everything, and then where are you going to take it from there, right? If you invest in fiber now, that's going to work.
Correct.
And it's cheaper. Really, honestly, in the long run, because the equipment has a better lifespan, and it's light. I mean, it's there's no an EMP is not going to affect a light source, or there's not going to be more importantly, there's not going to be any interference. So there's no such thing as a shielded fiber cable. Because there's no electromagnetic interference. Right.
People oftentimes think that armored is shielding when it comes to fiber. It's not. And armored is just there to rodent proof it from being chewed on.
Right.
So but you also have to remember, especially when it comes to copper, everything's backwards compatible. Right. So you're okay if you get a great deal and you're ready to go, and you know that the next 10 years I'm good with Cat 6A. Go ahead, put it in now. You're set for that, and then you can upgrade as you go, because, like I said, everything's backwards compatible from there.
Right, and then cost difference between Cat 6 and Cat 6A is nominal.
Yeah, it's very little.
Yeah,
very little.
So I mean, it's very prevalent, and I'm, I think we've got some really cool cables that we can make. I know I just did an order, and won't say for who because I can't.
Yeah,
but we're doing Cat 6A minis.
Mm-hmm.
So that normally our minis are Cat 6.
Yeah.
And so we got, Quabbin has all the colors in Cat 6A mini and shielded and plenum. These were
yeah. I've been looking at the Cat 6A Plenum.
Yeah, and so they are all getting installed somewhere. Very important. Let's just say that. And I'm proud of the way what the output is going to look like.
There's Highlander.
Hey, Highlander.
How you doing, Highlander?
What's up, brother?
It's an awesome show because we have awesome friends and viewers like you.
You got it. Okay, go 5.
Yeah.
So, right, and basically what that graphic is telling us is, invest in setting up the backbone of your network and doing that correctly, and it creates a lot fewer headaches on the front end.
Correct.
As far as how you actually push out your connectivity. I think it's critically important again when you're architecting this, plan the work and work the plan, understand future growth, understand what your current needs are realistically, not elastically.
Correct.
Right? You don't want to expand your thought process just because you think you might need something. Understand what you do now and how that growth looks, and then plan that way.
Yeah, you make a good point too. Here's one of the things. If you're coming into this to go ahead and set up your business, whatever it might be, for these needs, you might not be educated in the world to design this yourself. So don't be afraid to shop around, find a data architect that can help you design this properly.
Right.
I think sometimes people rush in, oh yeah, this is not a problem. I can figure it out myself. I can get this switch. I can get that. I can get the, especially small businesses.
Right.
They try to do it themselves when they just don't have the knowledge. And that will end up costing you a lot more in the future because you may purchase and use the wrong product. You get the wrong cabling.
Right.
So don't be afraid to step out there and do some interviews like you're interviewing everyone else for the job,
right?
And pick the right solution of a person to help you design and work this, with them.
Right. Best question to ask in any of those types of interviews is, why do I need that?
Yeah.
We always have to figure out, when we're getting advice, why somebody is advocating a certain direction over another. And another good question is, what are my alternatives? So this is plan A. If I wanted to understand what my other options are, what would those be? What would my other 2 options be?
Yeah.
And understand how a person thinks when they're explaining all that.
And here's a good point too. Don't be afraid to ask this question. Why do you want to spec in this brand?
Right.
Okay. It's best to say, okay, this brand is good, but you can also use an alternative.
Right.
But once something is spec'd into that architectural design, it is hard spec'd in there. You're going to have a hard time getting away from that.
Right.
So make sure that you ask that question.
Right. Your objective is to get the cable spec defined, meaning, let's say, for your jumper between your switches and your routers or whatever, you want OM4, let's say. You don't need to say it's name brand X OM4.
Correct.
Because it's unnecessary. You need to have performance. You don't need to lock yourself in to a system or a brand that might. I know there are some brands that we deal with, again nameless.
Yeah.
Where I cringe every time a customer wants a quote on their stuff, because not only are they difficult to do business with, and take forever to even get a quote back, but they're not really helpful if they're just kind of like robots pushing buttons, right? They don't really try and understand what the customer is trying to do, or ask us if we know what the customer is trying to do. They just go, quote, done.
Just this.
Boom. That's it. Yep.
And that's another point you make really quick, just to say, make sure when you're talking to people, you're talking again to the right people. The people are educated in this area.
Right.
That's going to save you time, money, resources when you're talking to your sales team, your person you're working with. Make sure that you understand who you're working with.
Exactly. Highlander's got back in the day in the factories, fiber optics were actually plastic. I know it's because I butt spliced on an electrical butt splice and it worked. Chrysler Trenton engine plant. Yeah. They, believe it or not, plastic optical fiber is still used. I've sold some.
Yeah.
So it's just, not, it's light pulses as opposed to light waves for the most part, right? Okay, go 6.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
AI is changing cable density. We've talked about this on several shows.
We have.
But, the data centers that are being built and the demands for tighter environments, smaller environments, more data.
Yep. Larger packets.
Yep.
I mean, we're talking all sorts going on there as far as density goes.
Right.
So as everything's condensing, right?
Right. And so that's where architecture is going. Therefore, everything that supports that, the cabling, the nerves of the system, that's what is being developed now. So it's always good to understand that you could be over engineering for today's standards, but by tomorrow, the world could change, and there could be a new great standard that's better than today. So get what you need, make sure you're able to grow, but don't over-engineer it thinking it's going to last 10 years because it's not.
No, and that's a good point because everything is changing so dramatically and so fast in this industry that you can, be prepared the best you can. But like you said, come tomorrow.
Yep.
And we're in a new world.
Right. And things change. Go ahead.
Oh, who was that?
Is that Highlander still, right?
Highlander?
Yep.
My cousin, an IBEWB card, had a suitcase so he could actually splice the actual fiberglass connect. Many years ago, he installed all the fiber optics for the old Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit. That's cool.
That is cool. Yeah. I mean, fiber optics have been around, but, there's quantum shifts that are happening now. And I think that, smart companies will take a step back and look at how they're going to grow, where they're going to grow, and what do they need now? Again, what can they use for future growth? Understanding that maybe they need a forklift upgrade at some point because the tech is just not going to do whatever the future demands may be placed on it.
Yeah.
Right.
If I have one last thing I want to say about this, because I know we're coming tight on time here.
Yeah, we're a little over.
You want to save money, you want to future-proof, you want to be ready, start with educating yourself first.
Right.
Start with the foundation to understand where you're at now, where you want to go, and have a game plan in place. And just be responsive to the industry.
Right. And always call us. We're more than happy to answer questions. We're more than happy to take your situation, understand it, and make recommendations because that's part of the service we provide. Yeah. It's the value add to using a Gruber salesperson is us, and what we experience every day in the wide variety of businesses that we deal with, companies, industries. We get exposed to probably more in a day than an individual network engineer would get exposed to in a year.
Yeah, and we have tremendous resources.
Right. Yeah. Lots of good partners in the business. Lots of great options. So we appreciate you being here. We're here because you're here. Every Thursday, 3 p.m. Arizona time. I always say Arizona time because guess what? Last week we were 1 hour ahead of California. Now we're the same
even,
time.
Right? Yeah.
So always Arizona time, 3 p.m. on Thursdays. We appreciate you being here. Tune in next week. For now, I'm Mark Beach.
I'm John Dotson. Thank you.
Thank you.